You are listening to a Monster Kid podcast.
Why don't we rent a video tonight?
Yeah, can we please?
On a weeknight?
Yeah, come on, Mom. It's okay.
Sure. Come on. Let's throw caution to the wind.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
What's up, guys? Before we begin, Brendan and I just want to let everyone know on our main feed that we are still alive and everything is boosting with awesomeness. We both apologize for the long wait in an episode. Both of our summers were stacked with hecticness, and we both wanted to get the next episode just right for our listeners in order to bring the same, if not more, epicness than our previous episodes had been. It's great to be back in the reel, y'all.
Indeed it does. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Vericon Video, a show that relives forgotten and unforgettable movies that once line the shelves of video stores everywhere. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Joseph.
And today we're flying to Salem, Massachusetts to dance All Hallows Eve away with the Sanderson Sisters. They will put a spell on you. We've got spells and magic, black cats and pointy hats. Grab a broom and hide your kids because it's Hocus Pocus from 1993. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Salem.
Welcome to the Cafe 80s, where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Okay, good evening, America, and welcome aboard Apollo 13.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you're enjoying it. I think you will.
After moving to Salem, Massachusetts, teenager Max Dennison explores an abandoned house with his sister Danny and their new friend Allison, accidentally freeing a coven of evil witch sisters who used to live in the house, and now with the help of a magical cat, the kids must steal the witch's book of spells to stop them from becoming immortal once again. So, Joseph, this movie conjures up a lot of memories for me. So, what does this do for you? What do you think about your relationship with this movie or trick-or-treating in general?
You know, trick-or-treating is such a huge childhood fantasy. At least for me, I just always looked forward to, it wasn't going up to the house. As I got older, it was more of just scaring little kids, which sounds terrible. It sounds god awful. But Halloween is just a really entertaining experience. And when I was little, I always dreamed about being a stormtrooper every Halloween. Yeah. Oh man, I get up in that costume. I remember one year Captain Rex costume came out. That was the best thing ever, dude. Got in the armor. I had my little toy blaster, and I'd be strolling around the neighborhood put your hands up, rebel scum.
So would you say that was your best or favorite costume?
Yes, hands down. Because my dream to grow up was to be a stormtrooper back then. Let's not forget. So it was definitely my bridge to being that. So yeah, for sure. How about you?
Life goals, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my favorite and best was one I did for a Halloween dance costume contest thing we had in our sophomore year of high school. And I went as Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And I went, and it's ridiculous so I got the overalls, but they were brown, like a light brown. So I needed a white one. So I spray painted them white. And then I even made all the pink detailing on the pants leg and the radioactive symbol on the back. I made a wig out of a white gorilla mask and stuff. And
wow,
it looked legit. I got to dig up pictures of this, but
yeah.
But for the contest, I didn't win. Actually, a girl dressed as a bumblebee won. And I'm so disappointed. I put so much money and detail into that costume, but
it was rigged.
Yeah, it was rigged. And it was one of those cute bumblebees too. Yeah,
that's cheesy, man.
So cheesy.
You go into all that detail and creation and just ideas of your costume, and then all of a sudden they just give this wash bag the prize, whatever.
I know. And it was surprisingly accurate. Even one of my teachers who was a self-proclaimed movie geek was like, so who are you supposed to be? Some kind of a mad scientist? Come on, I'm Doc Brown, man.
Yeah.
Doc Brown, look at all the watches on my hand. Come on.
People don't have a life, Brandon. People do not have a life.
So what is your relationship to this movie, Joseph?
I've seen it. God, I don't even know how many times now. Most of this has to do with my credit and big thanks to what used to be ABC Family, which is now Freeform, and their consistent, unrelenting showing of this movie every Halloween. And I have to be one of those lucky viewers that happens to be on Halloween on TV, and all of a sudden it pops up and I'm like, oh, surprise. Because of that, I actually found a huge love for this movie in the fact of I'm a huge history nerd, as we're about to find out later down this episode.
Yes.
And I love the whole Salem aspect, the witch hunt aspect of what went on with the pilgrims and the women that were accused of being witches. And it was just a very intense saga. And not a lot of people know that. And I think this movie really plays out a lot to what that used to be and the environment that people experienced during this witch hunt in Salem. And especially the beginning of this movie, as we're about to find out, it's awesome. And the cast and the acting abilities, the directing, the screenplay, like all that stuff just really plays into a Disney type of film.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see that.
Yeah, I have a very different relationship to this movie. So I've only seen this movie twice. I saw it once in theaters and then once for the podcast. So not to take us down a dark path, but the reason this movie sticks out for me is that my mom and dad and I went to see it the day that they told me they were getting a divorce.
Oh my.
And so, yeah, they told me that afternoon. And then that night we went to see Hocus Pocus.
well, shit.
So it just kind of marked that occasion, but it was a long time ago. And so it was interesting coming back to this movie and seeing it with fresh eyes and so I remember the trailer more than I do the movie just because they played it so much. Yeah. I mean, it's a fun movie and it reminds me a lot of Ernest Scared Stupid. Like it has that same kind of vibe to it and storyline even, or at least it's set up the same way. But yeah, I don't know. I was really curious when you suggested this for the podcast. Like, okay, so go back and check this one out. Yeah. So let's give you guys some background, some context on Hocus Pocus. It was directed by Kenny Ortega. It stars Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker. It's written by Neil Cuthbert and Mick Garris, based on a story by Garris and David Kirshner. And in the 1994 TV documentary Hocus Pocus Begin the Magic, producer David Kirshner said he came up with the idea for the film one night when he and his young daughter were sitting outside and his neighbor's black cat strayed by. And he allegedly invented the tale of how the cat was once a boy who was changed into a feline 300 years ago by 3 witches.
Wow.
Yeah. It's one of those things that happened. And the movie started life as a script by Mick Garris. It was bought by Walt Disney Pictures in 1984, so much almost 10 years before this movie came out. The working title was Disney's Halloween House, and it was much darker and scarier, and its protagonists were all 12-year-olds.
Wow.
And Garris and Kirshner pitched it to Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, and Spielberg saw Disney as a competitor to Amblin in the family film market at the time and refused to co-produce the film with his quote-unquote rival.
Man, the things you don't know. This is crazy, you know?
I know, we're pulling the curtain back a little bit.
Man, various rewrites were actually made to the script to make the film more comedic and made 2 of its young protagonists into teenagers. However, production was stalled several times until 1992 when Bette Midler expressed interest in the script, and the project immediately went forward. Midler, who plays the central antagonist of the film, originally written for Clovis Leachman, is quoted as saying that Hocus Pocus was the most fun I'd had in my career up to that point. Good stuff.
Yeah.
This next statement just goes back to like the what if this happened moments.
Mm-hmm.
Leonardo DiCaprio was originally offered the lead role of Max, but declined it in order to pursue What's Eating Gilbert Grape. That's insane.
And that was a really, really smart choice on his part.
I definitely agree.
I don't know if I've actually seen all of that movie, but it's really, really good from what I remember. And on all counts, it's a fantastic performance from DiCaprio and Johnny Depp.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Every time I see that title, I think of Gilbert Gottfried for some reason. What's Eating Gilbert Gottfried? I'm a bird. Just kidding, couldn't help it there. But anyway, so this film was released on VHS in North America on January 5th, 1994, and then later to DVD on June 4th, 2002. Following the film's release on the latter format, it has continued to show strong annual sales, raking in more than $1 million in DVD sales each October. And in the mid to late 90s, the film was rebroadcast annually on ABC and Disney Channel before switching over to ABC Family's 13 Nights of Halloween lineup in the early 2000s. The film has continuously brought record viewing numbers to the lineup, including a 2009 broadcast watched by 2.5 million viewers.
That's crazy.
And in 2011, an October 29th airing became the lineup's most watched program with 2.8 million viewers.
I can definitely consider myself a part of those 2.5 to 2.8 million viewers, Brandon.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're geared up and ready to go whenever October rolls around.
Ring a ding ding.
Now, the score for this movie was composed and conducted by John Debney. James Horner was originally slated to score the film, but it became unavailable at the last minute, so Debney had to score the entire film in 2 weeks. And even though he didn't score the film, Horner came back to write the theme for Sarah, more commonly known as Come Little Children, sung by Sarah Jessica Parker.
This music is what makes this movie. I mean, believe it or not, like in my opinion, it's definitely up to par with some of these films that may not have the content or quality that can just be amazing just by its acting. But yeah, this movie really goes far because of the music, and all credit to Debney for that. So in September 2017, screenwriter Mick Garris admitted that he was working on a script for Hocus Pocus 2 and that it would potentially be developed as a television film for Disney Channel, Freeform, or ABC. It was later confirmed that it will instead be a remake to air on Freeform, with the Royals writer Scarlett Lacey attached to write, and the original film producer David Kushner executive producing. The following month, Midler said she was not fond of the idea of a remake and she would not be taking part in it. Wow, that's disappointing. You know, like you get so much hype for this movie, like Hocus Pocus, like let's go. But
yeah, that's okay. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
In July 2018, a book titled Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel was released, containing a novelization of the film and a sequel story. I've yet to buy this book. I will not put it on my to-do list to buy, but I'm glad they did something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing we probably didn't even need, but I've been seeing it everywhere, like at Walmart and Target, you know, just the Barnes and Noble and stuff. It's everywhere. And I mean, of course, it's that time of the year, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's been favorably reviewed.
Well, I mean, this movie is based upon those three witch sisters, you know, and we all saw them die. Like, it was pretty obvious. Like, come on, you know, come on. So what could a sequel bring?
Right. I think this was a way for them to get a sequel out. It just kind of to pump some life back into that, you know, that property of Hocus Pocus and with the sisters and everything, because there really hasn't been anything up until that book came out.
Right. I mean, it's literally been that rerun every year on Freeform, and that's about it. Yeah.
So we're going to be giving this movie a closer look today, and I guess we should jump on our brooms and fly through this movie. What do you think, Joseph?
Oh, man, let's do it. Get some fresh air.
And now, our feature presentation.
So we open in 1693, and the main titles, we get this witch shadow flying over these trees and this lake and this town. We see farm animals, and there's these two boys chasing these girls. One is Emily, that we will later learn, and one falls down this hill, and they come upon this house, and of course it's occupied by witches, and they sneak to the window, and they have this girl captive. You meet the Sanderson sisters for the first time. We get Winnie, played by Bette Midler. She wakes up her spell book, which is a really interesting prop. It has an eye that looks around and stuff, and she calls for Mary, Kathy Najimy, and we will meet Sarah, played by Sarah Jessica Parker. That was easy to remember. And so they're mixing and they're brewing. This boy sneaks in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah. So basically, these sisters, all credit to Disney for accepting this kind of a movie, because they're actually wanting to kill this little girl, so that they can be younger again.
Right.
So they're mixing these spells up, and while they're mixing these spells up in this big ass pot, they're like dead, and I'm like shit, you know. And it's just it's a whirlwind of adventure, Brandon.
yeah. And then Mary smells a child. This becomes a running gag where she catches a whiff of a child and gets everybody all excited, and they start following the scent. And the spell was to take this girl's life for their own, to make them young again. They discover the boy. He jumps down, knocks the cauldron over. When he zaps him, and this girl's starting to fade. It's kind of weird. Like they're inhaling her spirit or something, her soul, her life essence. And it's and Mary burps. I like this. She's inhaling this little girl. It's really weird. And so they are rejuvenated, somewhat younger. It's a start, they say. And they're trying to figure out what to do with the boy. And they decide that he must be punished and to live with this guilt forever. And so they transform him into this cat. And outside, it's seen right out of Frankenstein. A mob shows up with torches at the front door. They're captured, and they are strung up in the gallows.
Basically, we're pointing to the boy who was turned into a cat, but nobody knows that he was turned into a cat, and because the parents are the ones that are questioning her, of the boy and the daughter that was killed, and the sisters, you know, bluntly being assholes, are just like, you know, cat's got my tongue. And as she's saying this, she also says a spell that we'll get into a little bit here.
Right. And just one thing to note really quickly about Sarah Jessica Parker. So she plays a witch that was executed during the Salem witch trials. And while researching her family history for the show, Who Do You Think You Are, 2004, Parker was shocked to discover that her 10th great-grandmother, Esther Elwell, was arrested in Salem, Massachusetts in the late 1600s for committing, quote, sundry acts of witchcraft and choking a neighbor to death. And this woman's case never went to court, and she escaped with her life, and the accusation ended the Salem witch trials. And Parker said that it had changed everything about who she thought she was.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like imagine finding that out just randomly. And
I'm really a witch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the spell is that Joseph mentioned is that a virgin will summon them on All Hallows Eve. They will be risen again in the future, and so they are hanged. I'm so puzzled by the use of the word hanged. I need to research like the history of that, but yeah. And so the cat, they shoo it away, and this is Thackeray Binks, the boy who became a cat.
Yes. Da, da, da.
And so we flash forward 300 years later, and we are in class. The teacher is telling the story of the Sanderson sisters. So we meet the denizens, and all this talk about, you know, black cats and witches and Salem, and it's crap. It's just all a conspiracy to sell more candy. We meet Allison, and Max has a thing for her, gives her his number.
He has to have more game, though. He does not have any game whatsoever. I feel for the kid. I really do. You've got a fat chance, Dennison.
Yeah, and so school lets out, and it's, you can feel the Halloween vibes, and Max rides past Allison. Didn't mean to embarrass her, he says. And she's not really into all the Halloween stuff, especially not on Halloween. I may have misunderstood this, but does she give him his number back? Is that what happens?
Yes, it is. I think it was just her being like, you're a wimp. I'm sorry. And
you've got no game. Come back when you have more game.
So it was strike one for Max. For sure. Yeah.
Poor Max. Yeah, he has pretty bad luck in this movie.
He does. He really does.
Yeah.
It's just his Big Brother game, his datathon kind of status needs to be upgraded. It's just a lot of things here.
Steps. And so he's on his bike. He goes into the forest and then into the cemetery. And we learn that Max has just moved there from LA, and he meets these two guys, Jay and Ernie, Ice. Excuse me.
Right. Ice-T.
He's rebranding. He's got the terrible haircut.
Yeah.
And so they're hassling him, trying to get some money out of him. So he got in cash, Hollywood, because he learned he was from LA. And they want his Nikes. And so they just take them. And
yeah, it's, yeah, especially like you're in a cemetery and you just wonder about these two guys. Like you're just strolling around. You just see these two guys. I want your sneaker. Like, okay, come on. Max, no backbone. That's his name from now on. All right. Max with no backbone. That's what we're gonna call him from now on. He just like, oh, okay. Here's my brand new damn sneakers that, you know, look fresh and clean and just hipster. But no, I don't care how much I paid for them. It's yours. What a wimp.
Pedals home with no shoes, and we meet his mom and dad. The dad here is played by Charles Rocket, and I think he's so great. He's so funny, but I feel like his name had come up before in another episode, but he was in Dumb and Dumber, and It's Pat, and he was really, really good, but he unfortunately committed suicide in a very terrible way.
Yeah.
And tremendous loss. Really liked him a lot. But yeah, they make a comment about him not wearing any shoes. And the dad says it must be some form of protest.
Prohibition. Jeez.
Prohibition. And so he's in his room resting. He's a little embarrassed. He takes a nap and he's thinking about Allison. And then his sister, Danny, played by Thora Birch, pops out of the closet. And she's like, I'm Allison, kiss me. She's giving him a hard time. It's really funny.
Little sisters. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. And I had forgotten that she was in this movie because I really like her as an actress. Like, I really liked her in American Beauty, which would come out, 6 years later, something like that. And was really good. I haven't seen her in much at all in a long time.
Yeah, I definitely think the 90s, early 2000s, that was her range. We don't know why, but that's just what it is, I guess.
And this guy who plays Max, I looked him up, and he has 13 credits. His name is Omri Katz. Yeah, 13 acting credits, mostly television. I think this and Matinee are probably his only like feature film credits.
Wow. Really?
So yeah, I was really surprised by that. So he's in, his last credit is a short film from 2002. So he's probably gone on to do other things now.
Yeah, yeah.
But okay, I've got to ask about this next scene. So he's talking to his sister, and then he just sits down at his drum kit and just starts playing, and it's very random.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, I know he's like trying to cause a lot of commotion so that his sister can't talk over it, but because she wants him to take her trick or treating, and so he
sits by the drum. You know what? I think what was going through his mind was, I can't get Allison. I'm not there. I'm not cool enough. And I just lost my sneakers. So he had to find some type of alternative to get his mind away from all this tragedy.
Yeah.
And I think playing the drums gives a nice avenue for that.
So that was like his way of purging all that embarrassment and guilt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, hey, when after I take an exam at ECU and I'm like, oh, geez, I didn't do as well as I thought I'd do, I'd go to my room, start playing the piano. Wow, there you go. Like, you know, stress reliever.
There you go. Yeah. And so he concedes and he's going to take her trick-or-treating, and his dad stops him and asks him what he's supposed to be dressed like. And he says a rap singer, and he's got this cap on, and he's like, fix your hat. And he's like turning it just like a parent would, like try to adjust before you go out, you know? Were your parents ever like that, or grandparents? Like whenever you had to go out somewhere, they had to check you over, make sure you look your best?
Yes. For those of you that have seen Christmas Story and the whole bundling up the clothes, you know, when it's snowing outside, like you're the abominable snowman, that was definitely my mom, 110%. Before I'd go outside, especially like during elementary school, make sure you have everything on. Make sure you have your jacket. Make sure you have your belt. Make sure you have your damn shoes. You know,
right.
Dressed to the nines. How about you?
Yeah, my mom was kind of like that too. If it was just a little bit chilly out, like I had to have something with a hood on it, and she would have to tie it at the neck for me. But I think the worst was my grandmother, because in her mind or through her eyes, she always saw something on my face that needed to go away. And so she would get a little cloth out, and it's kind of gross, but she would like dab it on her tongue, like to get it wet, and then mop my face with it. And I was like a cat over bathwater. I was just wriggling. No,
not me. It's like going through the torture chamber, the torture chamber of embarrassment.
So they're in the neighborhood, and Max is ready to go home. Jay and Ice, are tearing shit up, and they're trying to get candy bars from Danny. It's really weird. Like they're trying to.
Well, I guess the screenplay artists were like, all right, let's try to get them to do something because they're important in this movie for some reason. So yeah, just start taking away and stealing kids' candy like good boys. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a weird start I know we're building up to getting to the Sanderson house, but it just feels it's not like a slow burn kind of way, but it seems like it takes a little while for the movie to get going. Like after that little prologue. Let's see. So Max, being the big brother he is, steps in to intervene, and they ask him what he's supposed to be, a new kid on the block. Like classic bully fashion, he has to pay a toll. And so they want all of their candy. So he pretty much just takes all their candy and gives it to them, right?
Right. Max, with no backbone, is basically just, has no backbone here. I don't know. For some reason, it's such a surprise, Brandon.
Here you go.
And his sister, of course, is upset because that was her candy.
And says, "Get out of my life."
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Get out of my life. Yeah, Max feels bad. He hates this place. He said he wants to go home, but then he says that you get used to it. And so it's surprising that she's she's settled in a lot better than he has. Just give me one more chance. And then they hug, and all is better now. Everything is made new again.
So there's this motion, a little nice motion picture of something flying across the moon. And basically Danny's, scared out of her wits because we're supposed to be like, oh, what's happening? Like, what just went on? Like, solemn introduction to the witches, basically.
A solemn introduction. I like that. So they find a rich person's house, jackpot. They realize it's Allison's house, and there's a little party going on, but it's boring. There's a conversation here with Allison and Max and Danny about Allison. Says something about her yabos.
Yes. Right? What's a yabo?
Yeah, what's a yabo?
we're about to a yabo, a woman's pectoral area. Yabo. Is that it? Is that it? Wait.
Yeah, I mean, she does. She tells Allison that Max likes her yabos.
Yeah, it's definitely her pectoral area. So I will definitely be using this word from now on to impress the ladies. I'm gonna be going up. I'm gonna be going up with some game.
My what? My yabos.
I like your yabos.
Nice set of hooters you got there.
Oh God.
The owls are beautiful. So they decide that they're going to go to the old Sanderson's house. And Danny makes a comment to Max about, well, why can't you just take her to the movies like a normal person and not this 300-year-old house? But part of the deal is that next year they have to dress up together. He is Peter Pan and Wendy, for her in tights. Then it's a deal. And so they're at the house, and I don't understand. So this is a 300-year-old structure, this house, and it's pretty much preserved exactly how it was when we first saw it 300 years ago.
Yep.
And they've turned it into a kind of gift shop / museum, but it's shut down, but everything's still there. I don't know. It's a very weird kind of setup they have there.
It's amazing what Disney magic can do to a place. I've yet to see the full capacity, but this movie definitely shows the surreal aspect of Disney magic. There's this place in my town. It's called the Shaw House, and it was built back in the 1700s, 1715, 1716. And I have to admit, it looks pretty damn good for its age. And you can still the wood is still fading, but it's still preserved in the fashion that it looks like what it would have looked like back then. But for the fact that this house in this movie, it looks exactly like just everything in it, everything outside of it, the yard, The art is what impressed me. The art is what impressed you. Think that there'd be like some overgrown bushes, some like, oh, like this is some sketchy place. No, it looks like my grandma's house. Like, that's an issue, guys. That's an issue.
Yeah, because it has the original cauldron, we find out, and that cat is still around. The magic cat. It's watching from the window. The spell book is on display behind glass. So the story was that it was given to Winnie by the devil, and then there's this black flame candle.
The black flame in the house. Basically, Allison goes by it, and she reminds Max and Danny that make sure you don't light this candle, or whoever does, if they're a virgin, it will raise the dead. And apparently they didn't get that memo, but we're about to find out what happens.
So the cat Binks attacks them. Danny's like, well, let's just get out of here. It's just a bunch of hocus pocus. Max lights the candle, and then the light bulbs, like in all these like fake flames on the prop candles burst, and there's this great wind blowing through and green light under the floorboards, kind of this Beetlejuice moment. Yeah. And then the other candles, they light, and then so does the fireplace. And then the sisters arrive with great fanfare. We're home. And then they're getting all reacquainted with their personal possessions. Oh, my lucky rat tail. And which somehow survived the 300 years, but from turning it into, the home of three murdered women into a museum and tourist attraction.
Exactly.
How did they miss that lucky rat tail?
And how the book is still there, and it's treated like the best pet in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so the sisters are trying to figure out who lit the candle. And when he wakes up the spell book, and Mary, she smells children, and so they're roaming around. And Danny pops out and says, "I brought you back." And you're very, very well fed and plump and just having a real laugh. And why don't you stay for supper? And so there's a struggle, and Max pops out. They zap him, force lightning style.
Like Thor. They have the power of Thor. Like, it's so epic,
Oh, yeah. Allison knocks him out, and then Danny takes out Winnie. The cat takes out Winnie again. And then Max. Oh, so the sprinkler system.
Yeah. I love the fires. I love the fire safety hazards in this house. The candles lit. You got these flames lit in the house. The sequence of events that occur with this little skirmish going on in this house. The fire from Max. He lights a lighter next to the sprinkler system on the ceiling as his little threat. Right? For me personally, if I feel threatened by witches, I'm going to light a match next to a sprinkler system on the ceiling, because that's my definitely first defense. Great job, Max. So as he lights it, you can see all the sprinklers on the ceiling ignite, and you get all this water rushing down, and the witches feel like they're melting, because naturally that's what happens.
He called it the burning rain of death.
Burning rain of death. Yes. The BRD, as I like to call it, the triple BRD, guys, the burning rain of death. And that allows all three kids to basically escape with the spell book as the witches are burning from this rain. Yeah, it
is but water. Most refreshing. It is but water.
Dihydrogen monoxide, guys.
Right. So the sisters pursue them, and I love this. They come across like a paved road, and they think it's a river, and they're just really freaked out by what they're looking at, and they do this funny little like stalking motion, like where they're in like formation, the three of them.
It's so sketchy.
And let's see, we get some police lights. The cat tells them, the cat talks now. And the adjacent cemetery is hallowed ground, and they come across the grave of Billy Butcherson, Winnie's lover. We learn that the cat is Thackeray Binks. Not really a cat, but just a human turned into a cat.
Right. Different.
Very
it's
complicated.
Totally different.
Yeah. Very different. And then the firefighters find nothing at the Sanderson house.
Winnie, she looks at these firefighters, and these are witch hunters and all this stuff. And like they're in their big fireproof outfits, and the witches are awed at this sight of firemen at this house putting out the flames. And
we find out that their magic will only work tonight, and they have until daylight to take the souls of more children so that they can live forever. So that's
mission.
That's their mission, right?
Right.
And so we fly. Away we go. So the cat It's telling him that he's got the curse of immortality and that he felt like he failed his sister, which was who he was chasing there at the beginning of the movie, and is determined to stop the Sanderson sisters.
Right.
Max tries to burn this book, the spell book, which he was able to take at the last minute, but it's protected by magic. Sisters are flying over and they're trying to get this book, and Winnie wakes Billy and his mouth is sewn shut. And this is Doug Jones, a great, very physical actor. He climbs out of the graves, and the cat pulls him into a cave, right?
Yeah.
In hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, Max knocks Billy's head off, just clean off.
That's amazing. Well, I guess when you've been in the dirt that long, it kind of just gets a little less heavy on the system. So, the muscles aren't there. It just tears right off. But, Billy, I don't think Billy had any control over this situation, though.
Right.
And I think our listeners will definitely agree that when you've had this relationship with a witch and it's 300 years later, I'm sure you don't want to recounter that experience again. And, Winnie, being the super bitch that she is,
or a mega bitch.
Mega bitch. Yes. I just feel sorry for Billy.
Maybe the sequel focuses on Billy.
Yes. So we could have Billy in the sequel with Fred the Bird.
With Fred the Bird, yeah.
Fred the Bird, and a couple of our other well-known protagonists, just all together in this nice little fairy tale sequel.
Yeah, we've accumulated a lot of very unusual mascots over the past year.
Yes, we have.
And so they're in hiding, the old Salem crypt. Billy gets his head back finally. Winnie sends him to get the spell book. So it's kind of weird where, like, right now he's kind of under her control.
Right.
And but that starts to shift a little bit later. The sisters land outside the cemetery gates, and they must outwit them, our young teenage crew. And I love this, like the moment where it's like, oh, let's form a calming circle outside the gates. What do you think about the look of these witches? I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm actually glad that we're getting into this topic, because costuming was a very big situation, and I personally feel like they could have done a better job. I don't know if that's the popular opinion, but I definitely feel like they could have amped up the witches' costumes into a more realistic, into a more sketchy type of atmosphere. Because when I look at these witches, I don't feel threatened at all. And I think costuming has a lot to do with it. I think makeup has a lot to do with it. And for Winnie especially, because she is, of course, the head witch, Sarah Jessica Parker looks way too gorgeous. I'm sorry. Like, I look at her and I'm like, oh my God, just marry me. But, Winnie, poor Winnie, I feel like they could have done a better job with her to give her more justice as the lead witch, because when you're a lead witch, people feel threatened by you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Damn, it's Disney. I feel like they could have done it more justice. How about you?
Well, I think the Winnie character gets ample screen time, and I think is gets in the spotlight quite literally. But the one that I think doesn't get as much screen time is Mary, played by Kathy Najimy, is because I love her in Sister Act.
Right.
She's really, really great in that. And she pretty much just has that I smell children kind of thing.
Her acting ability was on par in this movie. It really was. You just love her character.
Oh, yeah. It was great. Yeah. And all three. I mean, even Sarah Jessica Parker with that kind of ditzy little thing that she does and gets on everybody's nerves. And so our sisters, they get onto a bus. And the driver's like, come on in. You girls are giving me a fever.
It's awesome.
I love that. And so Billy is in pursuit, kind of. And
Billy's chasing them. And they're basically, it's like hot pursuit.
Yeah, yeah. And above, we have Sarah, who's in the bus driver's lap. Driving the bus, honking. Yeah. And drives over Binks. And then he reinflates like a balloon, and he's alive again. He's immortal, remember?
I want organs like that, Brandon. I need organs that inflate.
Just inflate whenever, and flatten like a pancake. And so the bus stops, they're out, but they're able to blend in very, very easily because it's everybody's trick-or-treating. And there are lots of events going on, house parties, you name it, just mayhem in the streets. And then
there's this little girl in an angel costume, right? Like all dressed in white. And she's like, bless you. And because she's an angel. And the witches, like all of them are starting to screech and wail because last thing they want is some holiness figure blessing them. That was pretty funny.
It's really great. Yeah, I like that. And I really like this too, where I guess this guy's house.
Oh my God, yes.
He's dressed like the devil. Master.
This was
like, oh, it's the Sanderson Sisters.
This was definitely one of my favorite scenes. Of course. Like,
it's great because you get Max and Danny and Allison, and they're trying to enlist the help of this motorcycle cop. And they're explaining that the sisters are free, and Max had lit the candle, and he's like, you lit the candle? And the cop asks him if he's a virgin. So really you're a virgin? So get out of here, take that cat with you. And then the cop's date comes out, and he's like, oh yeah, those kids thought I was a real cop.
It's the best.
He even had the motorcycle.
I mean, he had the full like get up. He had the badge. He had the look. He had everything.
Yeah, he went all out on that Halloween. And let's see, Billy loses his fingers through the manhole cover. They get pinched off. Yeah, I guess this is a good place to take a little break, and we will be back right after this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Well, it's that time. I guess we need to give our patrons a special shout out. So thank you to Colin, Mondo, Pete, Ryan S., Ryan M., Jonathan, James, the boys over at Random Movie Roulette, Lewis, Mike, and Jack, Jacob and Tab from Test Patter, and Rich and Naomi from Bloody and Love. Thank you all so very much for your support. If you're not a patron but are interested in finding more about how that works, just go over to patreon.com/VeraconVideo for more information.
Yo, you guys are the OGs. Thanks so much for being such awesome supporters for this show.
And now, back to the movie. So we last left the Sanderson sisters with their master, Satan, and his wife, who are hosting this little house party. And it's pretty great because the guy dressed as Satan, his wife has curlers in her hair, and she's not dressed up. She's just kind of hanging out. And one of them remarks that Satan has married Medusa. So that was funny. And they had left their brooms outside the house, and so the kids just take them.
I mean, hey, they're kids.
And so, so they think he's the devil. And they're watching TV in this house, and I love it. We see this ad for a carpet cleaner, and it's one I used to see on TV all the time. The music, it's a really well-known piece of music. I can't remember what it is, but it's this point of view thing, and I can't remember much about it now, but I just remember seeing that all the time on TV. Sarah, to Medusa's surprise, is dancing with the devil. In the pale moonlight, that's right. The wife is not happy. But we should note that this couple is played by brother and sister, Gary Marshall and Penny Marshall. And he's the one dressed as Satan, of course. And the devil's dog was actually Kathy Najimy's.
Wow.
So there you go.
Fun fact.
The more you know. So the dog on them, the sisters, they don't have any brooms now, so they must go out on foot. And then they've been really confused about what is actually happening with all this Halloween stuff. And they think these are actually monsters and hobgoblins. And then it kind of dawns on them, these are not hobgoblins. Children wear costumes and run amok. And so that's their observation in a nutshell about what Halloween is. And so we're at this school dance. There's a costume party. Max's dad is there as Dracula, and he's trying to be a cool dad, which I admire.
I agree.
But trying to keep his distance too, And the mom is dressed as Madonna. She's got the yabos.
The true yabos. The true yabos.
Yeah. And Danny is trying to explain everything that's happened to her mom, and she's like, oh, that's cute. He just doesn't pay her any mind. The sisters show up, they crash the party, and the singer on stage, like the band, like this guy's dressed like
a skeleton or a human skeleton.
Yeah, he's all dressed in black with the skull face, the skull makeup. And that's when Winnie takes the stage and her sisters, and they do this really awesome rendition of I Put a Spell on You. And it's really cool, a lot of fun. It's probably the highlight of the movie is this musical number.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody is getting seduced by this song. So, Max gets the mic and he says he tells everybody that the sisters are here, and he just gets a laugh. And they thank you for that marvelous introduction. And then when he seduces the crowd with his song, and the sisters are singing backup. Meanwhile, Billy is after Allison and Danny and Max, and the crowd is really getting into the song. They're getting a spell is being put on them, quite literally. And they're dancing, and there's all this great applause after the song is over. And if you look really closely in the top right corner, you see a guy in a Tron costume.
Yes. Oh my God. Like, shout out.
That's right. Episode 1, baby.
Yes.
So Max gets on the PA, and he's luring the sisters into, they call it a kiln, but it looks more like an incinerator of some kind.
Yeah, it definitely looks like an incinerator. I mean,
so
what else would it be?
Right, because they think they're going to the library because that's where they think the book is, but then they're being lured by this French voice, and it's just like a language learning tape that they have on that brings them in. And so so they get in this incinerator and they're burned alive.
It's definitely a Disney-esque type of scene, you know. They endorse people getting burned alive.
Yeah, we're Disney. We burn our witches. No melting witches here. We set ours on fire.
This girl is on fire.
All seems back to normal. Max is like, well, Binks, we stopped them. And one other little thing I want to mention here before we move on is that when Danny and Allison are dancing after burning the Sanderson sisters alive, the fountain in the background was the one used in the opening credits of Friends.
That looks very... I was very curious about that because it looked very familiar.
Yeah.
And I was like, where have I seen that before? Now
you know.
Now I know. Wow.
And so Binks, we have this kind of, parting of heroes moment, like you would expect, like after the climax of a movie, and Binks goes to leave, but then he just becomes part of the family.
Like, okay.
Yeah. I was like, we know you're really a boy, but we're going to treat you like a cat. But anyway, so they go home. The parents aren't back yet. They're still partying, and
under the spell, of course.
Under the spell, yeah. And then he tells Binks, "You're my cat now."
And purr. Meow.
Meow. It just sounds like this is becoming a whole different movie here. You're my cat.
It's escalated from G-rated to PG-13. Boys and girls.
Allison and Max get snuggled up. Binks is purring, and the witches somehow make it out of the kiln.
Incinerator.
Yeah, / incinerator. And we come across Jay and Ernie, and they're rolling, we would call it rolling yards or rolling houses. So throwing toilet paper up in the trees and stuff. The witches stop by, and they notice Ernie's shoes. They recognize them. And this guy calls the sisters chicks. And then all of a sudden they find themselves imprisoned in cages at the Sanderson house.
Oh, yeah. Hey, karma's a bitch.
It really is. These poor guys. Jay and Ice.
Ice, yes.
Sorry,
Ice,
Ernie.
Ice.
And so they're trying to remember the potion recipe. A dead man's buns, chungs. So Winnie can't remember it. And Jay and Ernie / Ice are sobbing. And Winnie calls for her spell book. And it wakes up next to Allison and Max. And Allison has to go, saying, oh, well, maybe we can use the spell book to turn him back into person. But at the same time, like Danny was like, I'm more excited. She's got a new pet. And so I don't know if Danny's going to be cool with that. She wants a cat. She doesn't want a boy. Allison opens the book and it sends out this beacon of light in the sky for the sisters to follow and seek out.
But yeah.
And so the sisters see it. It's like, we fly. Fly on what? And so we have, because they lost their ordinary brooms that were stolen by those children. So now we have a broom, a mop, and a vacuum cleaner. Mary's on the vacuum cleaner, and it's so freaking hilarious.
Classic.
And Sarah Jessica Parker has said that she found being in the flying broom harness so comfortable that instead of being lowered back to the ground during the extended downtime between takes, she would stash a copy of like the New York Times on her to read while being suspended in the air.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So where did they get this idea that a circle of salt can protect them? Was that from the spell book, or?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Some type of anti-holiness.
Yeah. Yeah, because Binks says he intervenes. He says there's nothing good in this book, and then the sisters descend upon the house. Winnie cuts through the screen door with her fingernail. It's a nice little detail there. Max finds some salt, and he and Allison have this almost kiss.
Of course, it's an almost kiss.
There's always an almost kiss, never a full kiss.
Disappointment.
Yeah. So Danny, poor thing, is in trouble. The book is gone. The sisters use the book to zap Allison. Use more force lightning here. As Emperor Palpatine shows up. And,
I was thinking that too.
So Allison throws some salt around, and the sisters take Danny, just like Jeepers Creepers style, just fly away with her. And Sarah's singing as she flies this "Come Little Children" thing. And
Amber Alerts.
Amber Alerts, exactly. Because it's drawing all of these children to the Sanderson house, and the kids are like drawing like zombies. Now, I wonder, why didn't they just do this in the first place?
I think that was like their last plan, their grand finale. Like if everything else went to shit.
So this was kind of plan C kind of thing.
Exactly.
So Allison remembers that when the sun comes up, the Sandersons turn to dust. We're at the Sanderson house. Danny is tied up. Binks is strung up in a sack, feeding candy to Jay and Ernie, Ice. And Danny is being kind of nasty with him, saying, telling the sisters that you sold your soul and you're ugly. And when he gets all offended and she's getting the cauldron going, Max bursts in and said his secret weapon is daylight savings time. So we get this light pouring into the house, and Max saves Danny while the sisters are distracted. And they're like, it hurts. Binks is rescued. Max gets his shoes back. They leave Jay and Ernie, Ice, and they escape. And I loved it. The sisters are like, we were tricked again. And just, I don't know. I like this because they're just.
It makes them look like they're just amateurs. But that's why, before I mentioned with the costumes, maybe if they did something better with making these witches look more badass, then, something like this would have been like, oh, it's okay. Y'all can still kill these kids, right? As terrible as it sounds.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just that kind of that same reaction where they're not being harmed in any way, but they're reacting as though they're melting or
they're
burning.
melting, right?
Yeah. It hurts. And that's what is the funniest to me, is that they're not even feeling anything. But the candle is almost out, and there's just enough potion left for one child. And so now the children are approaching. And when he's like, she's going on about being called ugly, that really hurt my feelings. She doesn't even know me. Called me ugly. And so they get in this Ford Explorer. And then Winnie, this is from the trailer, I remember this vividly, but Winnie pulls alongside on her broom and asks to see their driver's permit.
That's
a nice little gag there.
See your license and registration, please.
Yeah. And so they get to the cemetery. Billy gets a hold of Max, and then he takes his knife and he uses it to open it. His mouth has been sewn shut, so he uses that to open his mouth, and he's speaking to Winnie, and he's calling her all these names, wench and trollop. And during a 20th anniversary screening of this film, Doug Jones, who plays Billy, revealed the moths that come out of his mouth at the end are real. They're not CGI.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Taking one for the team.
Yeah, seriously.
Billy is a good zombie, and then he makes a new friend, and it helps her hide like in his burial plot, which is weird. Allison pours salt around it. Max is ready with his baseball bat. But when he takes it, Allison throws some salt on Sarah, causing her to spin out. That's a cool little effect, too, where she just does like a little flip in the air. And I didn't catch this when I watched it last, but during the final fight in the cemetery, apparently at some point, the background music is supposed to imitate Miss Gulch's theme from The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
And I missed that somewhere, but
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're moving right along. When he takes off Billy's head and Allison is out of salt, Danny helps Billy with his head.
That's a lot of Billy's head.
A lot going on with Billy's head in this movie. His head.
What a protagonist.
Yeah, his head itself is a character. But when he's bearing down, snatches her and is about to give Danny the potion, Bud Binks jumps on her and Max catches the vial. And then he drinks it and says, you have to take me instead.
What a guy.
I know. That's he's getting his backbone, I think.
He is.
He's straightening up a little bit.
It's about time.
And so when he takes him and starts doing that weird inhaling his soul thing, and Mary's trying to fly away, but the kids have the power cord to the vacuum.
Yeah.
That is my favorite bit from this movie.
That's awesome.
You can't get away because they got the power cord. Sun's coming up. Winnie falls. The sisters fly away. Max is kind of shimmery, and Winnie's like trying to beat the clock. She starts sucking again. That soul, and turns to stone. The sisters turn to stone. They all explode. Binks is okay. Sunrise, all is okay. And then Danny says, I love you, jerk face.
I'm so glad that siblings can just get on this level. Just love and appreciation. Jerk face, yeah.
Right. Because we can't have overt affection between brother and sister. That's just not cool.
Exactly.
Gotta have that buffer of some endearing names like that.
Right.
I love that they're just like, bye, Billy, have a nice sleep. And he just crawls back into his plot.
300 years later, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to sleep. And Binks is thought dead. He won't wake up. And then human ghost Binks appears, Force ghost Binks, and he's finally free. And he just says, thanks. And then his sister's human ghost, Force ghost, calls for him. And so we have this parting of our heroes yet again. The ghost Binks kisses Danny on the cheek and then leaves. And everybody's waving at each other like a bunch of idiots. They're just cheesing. How many smiley faces do I have in the notes here, Joseph?
3.
That's right.
Not 1, not 2, but 3. This is huge.
This is pretty big.
This is huge. Like
insane. It's really ridiculous. It's like in the last 3 minutes, they're just like, we don't even care anymore.
Fucking all. So we're just putting this on the line. We're through. Just want our money. Yeah,
because it's weird because Binks. So when Binks is reunited with his sister, or the spirit of his sister, she's kind of giving him a hard time. Like, what took you so long? And he's like, I had to wait 300 years for a virgin to light the candle.
Yeah, okay. This is like, if there were no dialogue, this would probably have been one of my favorite scenes. If they had not waved, this would have been my favorite scenes.
I agree. It's the waving. It's that kind of zinger of a line to wrap everything up. That I had to wait 300 years for a virgin to light the candle.
Come on, you didn't have to say that. You could just look at your sister.
Yeah,
like actions speak louder than words.
Right, exactly. Thank you. We didn't need a last laugh to wrap the movie up. We want to end on a high note. We'll just,
It should have been sentimental.
Exactly.
It should have been sentimental. You're seeing your sister for the first time in 300 damn years. And I'm sorry, but she died on your watch while you saw it. And for the first time when you see her, and the first thing that she can say is, what took you so long? Okay. And the first thing you can say is that you had to wait for a virgin.
If I was Binks, I'd been like, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Could have been so much better.
Yeah, that's how the movie ends. Like the gates of the cemetery close and then the credits roll. Parents are filing out of the gym. I guess the spell is worn off, and the dad he's like, and I thought LA was a party town. they've been jamming all night. And Jay and Ernie Ice, they're in their cages at the Sanderson house still. We just end on this shot of the spell book with its eye open. And then the rest of the credits roll against a reprise of I Put a Spell on You. And that is Hocus Pocus from 1993. Any final thoughts, Joseph?
I think this movie hits on a lot of great levels in terms of being a family film. If you want to have a nice Friday night, Saturday night, pre-Halloween type of environment with the kids and just getting them pumped up for Halloween, and y'all are in the living room, then this is a perfect movie to watch. It's very clean, but it's not scary, because I can definitely give the whole rated R scary of like It being the go-to, but this is definitely more of the G-rated type of scary for families to love and watch to get into Halloween. So, Brandon, all in all, I think they did a good job with this movie, but there were more points that we saw where we just love to criticize because they could have done a lot better.
Yeah.
They really could have, especially with Disney being the lead, taking charge of this movie. For sure, they could have had the budget to make it more realistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think for me, and this will, I'll just kind of segue into my final thoughts too, but I think that the movie doesn't, it's a family film, but it doesn't have a whole lot of substance to it.
Right.
And so, like, for me, like, it's mostly just about the laughs and the characters. Like I've said, I've only seen it a couple of times, but it's good, light October fun.
Yeah.
And it is one that you can watch with the whole family and enjoy and have some repeat viewings. I think that, like you said, it comes on this time every year, then it has established a pretty valid cult following.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen this since it came out in 93 until recently. And like I enjoyed it. Like I thought it was like it got me in the spirit of Halloween and October and just, yeah, maybe want to go and just buy all kind of Halloween shit and decorate my apartment. If this is one that you haven't had in your rotation for a while, you should consider putting it back in.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, because it doesn't really have that much substance and quality of content, then that is why it can be played year after year after year, because people won't digress that much into it as you would for something like, let's say, Shawshank Redemption, which is a huge number. Even though it's played consistently, it has more impact on people than something like Hocus Pocus would.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think the one the one people remember for, just the antics, the characters, and a feeling. I guess it's just like you never feel like anybody is in any peril. Right. You just know everything's going to work out okay. It's kind of theatrical in a sense. But Joseph, I believe you have some shout-outs this time.
Yeah, man. All right, guys. So as part of Joe's shout-outs for today, if you're into history as much as I am, and ironically, like we were talking about Salem during this episode, go check out the History Unplugged podcast. That is History Unplugged podcast with Scott Rank. It is the only show that dedicates its episodes to both interviewing experts and answering questions from the audience on the most critical points in world history. The amount of information that flows through these episodes is absolutely ridiculous, guys. And the people Scott brings in to talk about, like, for example, let's say the American Civil War, and talking about the Civil War is just captivating. Right now, I'm actually on part 10 of Scott's Civil War series, and there's so much stuff about this war that I never knew about. The public can benefit so much about learning more about this war and what it actually stood for compared to the stereotype. And I think that getting your sense about what happened during this time period can really help evolve and connect people of today. Yeah, go check it out. Once again, History Unplugged podcast.
And now, coming soon to video cassette.
And so next time, look for Falling Down from 1993 on Patreon. It's an urban crime drama / thriller starring Michael Douglas, Robert Duvall, and Barbara Hershey that pits one man against LA gangs, fast food workers, neo-Nazis, and a police sergeant on the cusp of retirement. Preferred renters on Patreon can check it out later this week.
Remember to rate and review the show on iTunes. If you have questions, suggestions, or just want to tell Brandon and Joseph what you think of the show, send them an email at vericonvideo@gmail.com or call the Vericon Video hotline at 312-620-5560. They are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Vericon Video. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for Brandon and Joseph's next chat about another exciting movie from the rental era. So long, and peace out.
Goodbye, Vietnam! That's right. I'm history. I'm out of here. I got the lucky ticket home, baby.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Jenny.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle. Bye-bye.
Do take good care of yourself.
What is this, your farewell speech? Going home. Have a good trip.
Hasta la vista, baby. I have to go.
Adieu. Auf Wiedersehen. Gesundheit.
Farewell.